Oh, we're live, it looks like. We're just sitting here enjoying the moment, and we're live. Mike O'Day here with Blake Jamieson and Drew Austin, all co-founders of Knights of Degen, NFT project, focused around like sports fans and sports betting. And yeah, we're all going to be talking about what's happening with the project. What's up, guys?
What's up, Mike? What's up, guys? My name is Blake. In terms of Knights of Degen, I did all the art stuff.
Blake's he's being humble. He's one of the leading NFT artists in the space. He was voted #1 sports artist by, what was that from you? By Beckett. He's done projects for Terrell Owens and Des Bryant, and we're lucky to have him on board as our head of our art direction. What's up, everybody? I'm Drew Austin. I'm one of the co-founders of Knights of Degen. I'm also founding partner of Redbeard Ventures, a venture capital fund that invests in Web3 projects and the metaverse and play-to-earn gaming and the NFT ecosystem. And my job, both as Knights of Degen and in Redbeard, is to help grow this space and bring more people into Web3. And I'm going to tease a little bit, but at the end of the talk, I'll save 2 minutes or so for a really cool announcement of something we're doing with Knights of Degen. So let's rock and roll.
So, Drew, I always love hearing you explain the project. Like, I think you give a really good, 40-second pitch of kind of like what we're up to and what we're doing and what makes Knights of Degen interesting, right, in the wider NFT space.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give a little background on the project and how it all started and how I would describe what we're doing today. Background context, my co-founder, Jared Augustine, he came to me and we sat down. We were both recently sold tech companies, and we were getting really into Web3. This was the heart of the pandemic. And we talked about, what do we talk about with our friends all day, every day? And when we came to the conclusion was our interests and the conversations we were having were around sports betting, speculation on NFTs, investing in crypto. We wanted to share alpha, share insights with like-minded individuals. So we said, let's create a project that's built on that foundation. So it started with this community of people that shared those same interests. And from there, it became something far more, which I'm really excited about. We launched an 8,888 NFT PFP project. Obviously, those are our Knights. And from there, we started to get involved in various sports ventures, sports projects. I'm wearing the jersey of one of them today.
What does it say on the back? What do you got?
This is our fan-controlled football team. Our fan-controlled football team with my fund on the back.
Shout out Redbeard himself.
Shout out to FCF. Their championship game is tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. But our community owns a team in that football league. Our community is investors in the WAGMI United Soccer Club. Our community has esports teams in the Footium League, in Zed Run, in TRV. So we are building these franchises and teams and projects all in the effort to build, three things. One, grow the revenue and value of our community and the assets that we hold. Two, create more content, more awareness, and drive interest in the project. And then three, come up with fun ways for our community to engage and provide utility. And ultimately, where this all heads is the decentralization of Knights of Degen and the tokenization of our business. And that's the direction we're headed, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Before we get more into the structure of kind of Knights of Degen, some of the interesting nooks and crannies on kind of how we're building, Blake, what's one of the more surprising things from your end? Obviously you came in on the creative side of it, but we're all very, very involved in the business and the marketing and just other activations and making things happen for the project. What's something that's surprised you about the project in a positive way, in a good way?
Well, I think I got into NFTs in early 2020. I had been working, making portraits for athletes for years at that point. Had a licensing deal with Topps. So I was very familiar with the sports realm. And when I first started doing NFTs, it was all like one-of-ones, tapping into the archive of just art that I had created. And when Drew came to us with the Knights of Degen concept and the idea of doing a generative collection, I think was like, it was a fun experience and it was a big learning experience. And I think some of that shows in the way that the art ended up for that first batch. But
It's dope.
It's dope. But as an artist, I always look back at previous work and I see opportunities to get better in the future. And so I was really proud of what we did with our second drop with Steeds. I think we really kind of sharpened up the art and cleaned it up. So for me, I'd always been the guy putting the paint on the canvas and making the actual things, and transitioning into more of a creative direction role has been surprisingly awesome.
Yeah, and so much of the wider NFT space is kind of experimenting and learning and taking chances and growing, right? And we as a project, from the day we launched, it's hearing our community, how are people actually responding and reacting and what do they care about, right? Sure, I guess, how do you see that vision playing forward, going forward of just providing more value back to NFT holders, our NFT holders who care about sports and want to, that's the centerfold of our whole community, which is super awesome because even on down days, there's something else to talk about, right? I guess, what are some of your learning lessons there of kind of anchoring to a community and really thinking about what's the value that can be delivered to that customer base?
Yeah, I guess there's a few things here. I think it first starts with a collaboration, a tight collaboration with our community. So to give you an example, we have our community council and lead member right there, OTM. In the house. Shout out to OTM. He's a big part of our project. He leads the community council for Knights of Degen. And what's really interesting is we work very closely with our community to develop Knights of Degen together. So from day one, we started building this kind of decentralized governance model where we make suggestions, proposals. We are in talks together to figure out what's going to be best for the community.
Yeah, and it's weaved more into even the structure and the workflow versus we're setting up for a token that kind of facilitates this in a more technical way, but it's really building the actual capability of doing the work versus hey, here's this mechanic that enables doing the work.
Yes. So the other part of that is, with that set of the idea that we have decentralized governance, we have a community structure, we also started thinking about projects and in terms of how do we evaluate the effort and value of a given initiative. So our kind of unique approach, and being a sports community, we said, let's evaluate projects by singles, doubles, triples, home runs, and grand slams. A single, we try to shoot for singles almost every day. Doubles, we try to do them every week. Triples, we try to do every other week. Home runs, we try to do every month. And grand slams, we try to do every quarter. And that gives us this kind of baseline to know what's going to go in and what's going to come out of each effort. And in the long run, I think that's going to help us to determine how to compensate projects, how to compensate contributors in a more autonomous way, and allow the community to start to build a muscle of voting on the value and effort of a given project. So everything that we do is about how do we build this year. We're less than 1 year old, so we're a really new startup. So every year, this is the first year where we're saying, let's focus on the foundation. Let's build the muscles. Let's build the organization. Let's build the team. Let's build our processes. Let's execute some of these projects. And then the next 12 months, it's about growing our audience and furthering our awareness and expanding our ecosystem. And I'm really excited for that.
Yes. So sometimes it's and we've learned this through trial and tribulation. It's we're so confident in all that we're doing, but sometimes communicating that in a short, concise way is challenging, right? Because what our biggest goal is to build the home for sports fans in Web3, right? Whatever that means, and it's building new ventures and exploring new opportunities and creating these awesome experiences. Blake, outside of the art, what's like one thing that's happened in the project that interests you the most? That interests you?
I mean, I think as an artist, like, you just want to grow and you want to challenge yourself and you want to make better art. Every time you make new art, hopefully it's better than the art you made yesterday. And so I already feel like one of the like tangible benefits I've gotten by being parts of Knights of Degen is getting that experience and getting to play creative director and design very large collections with hundreds of traits.
And beyond the art, like what area of Knights of Degen are you like, that's awesome?
I mean, I think that it's really fun to see how, like, the community, like, we have the overarching community, and then we have these little micro communities that are part of it. And, like, the one example that comes to mind is, like, poker, which isn't necessarily sports, but, like, that community is thriving. And that community on its own could support an NFT project. And so I just think, like, us building out that framework to support those micro communities is really exciting.
Yeah, so it's like an umbrella of all these like micro communities that kind of like run on their own, right? Like Drew, you've talked about this a lot, but a DAO on DAOs, right? Like that whole structure.
First of all, can you guys hear us? Yeah?
Yeah, we
Sounds
can't hear
okay?
each other that well.
It sounds
And
a
we
little
need a little
weird
call
to
and
me.
response.
All right, I just want to make sure everybody can hear us because
When I say Knights,
it's loud as hell over here. All right, cool. What were you saying, Mike? What was the question?
DAOs, like DAOs on DAOs.
Yeah. So our approach and like the vision for how we're structuring this ecosystem is we're ultimately want to DAO and decentralize Knights of Degen. So what does that mean? We see that the Knights of Degen will be this kind of overarching DAO where, and I liken it to if Disney.
Do you need me to hold your mic?
If what?
I thought you were gonna.
No.
Like,
I liken it to if Disney or ESPN were created in Web3. If you think about it, Disney came out with this IP. And then everything they did from that point forward was figuring out new ways to expand their IP through new ventures and new ways to engage their audience. Now, that's very similar to what we're doing with Knights of Degen, but the interesting thing is everything had to be done and built by Disney, as opposed to in a decentralized world, our community members with tokens and NFTs can come in and propose, I want to build a fantasy sports app. I want to create a UFC show. I want to lead a footium team. And that's what's happening here. So we are, with everyone's shared mission of growing this Knights of Degen DAO and their brand and the IP, each initiative can be a subsidiary DAO in and of itself that needs support, effort, execution, and drive value to the greater whole while supporting its own initiative as well. And then ultimately, and this is where decentralization is at the core of all this, is that everyone who participates, the contributors, the consumers of the content or the project, the creators, the founders, the investors, everyone should benefit in a tokenized way from participating in growing this brand. And that's the difference. In ESPN, they are the ones that benefit. When you read ESPN content or play on ESPN's fantasy app, you're not earning anything, but you're creating value for them. We need to decentralize ownership, and that's where we're really leaning into that model and providing the infrastructure to support our ecosystem to build and follow their passions of participating in sport and participating in Web3 and being able to contribute and earn. And if we can do that, then we can create an opportunity for financial freedom that may not have existed in the past.
Yeah, and I think that like that's half of the picture, because we're trying to build all these different ways that people can be compensated, right, with our tokenomics, with Degen token. But I think that what you didn't mention is like we're also looking at how that can be used, like the partnerships where people will accept Degen token, right, for other platforms that aren't part of our DAO, that isn't our business, but we're forming these partnerships with sports-related businesses where people can actually spend the currency that they're making on brands and in ways that they're like excited about, right? Which I think is equally as important as giving them the token. You got to give them somewhere to put it.
That's critical. And I think what we're seeing today with like ApeCoin is a great example. what do you do with ApeCoin? You know, and I'm not knocking ApeCoin. They're just getting started, but the reality is there's not much utility for the
I bought
token.
a sweatshirt with ApeCoin.
What was that?
I bought a sweatshirt.
There you go. We bought merch, and that was the opportunity. But our job right now is to build the infrastructure and partnerships and ecosystem around KOD, so when we distribute token or you earn token from participating in our ecosystem, there are going to be outlets for you to utilize it, whether it's a sports betting platform, a fantasy app, our upcoming restaurant brand called Degen Sauce,
And
our
merch.
beer, our football tickets. All of these avenues should create new utility and demand for the token. And if that happens, then that creates more value for the KOD ecosystem in and of itself. And when that starts to happen, it gives us more resources to reinvest in our ecosystem, and that creates a flywheel, and that's what we're trying to do.
And also, like, that token ends up being the cheapest entry point for someone to come in and be in our ecosystem, because people will be able to get the token easier than Knights where there's only 8,000 of them, or Steeds where there's only 4,000 of them. So I think it opens up like the opportunity for our audience to grow much bigger than it currently
Without
is.
diluting the IP that we created.
Yeah, so all this is a new way of working, a new way of thinking about how to organize as humans, how to build, right? Like, we see it within our team, it's a new way of working. We see it with how we're working with the community, how we're working with partners. The nature of doing anything new is there's no written path, and you're going to come up with some like stumbling blocks along the way of trying to figure out like a new, better way of doing things that is more equitable for the people who are contributing. Like, what are some of the biggest challenges in your guys' mind that we've seen to date? Because I think we are paving the way of doing this and building this structure, and others are going to copy us, right? So like the learning lessons are incredibly valuable.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is not easy. This is all new territory. I mean, we're paving new ground, and our job is to kind of clear the road for those that follow in this space and want to pursue decentralized businesses. So I think the first thing is a lot of people that hold NFTs or hold tokens, the reality is this is their first experience feeling invested in a startup. And that comes with positives and negatives. Positives is they want to contribute because they feel vested in the success and they feel part of the growth and they have an ownership stake, really, in some way, shape, and form. The risk is there is a level of urgency without patience to develop. That's going to happen regardless. So our job is to kind of set expectations properly. We want our ecosystem and our community to understand that we're building the muscle to rapidly experiment because there is no right answer. You're going to see this next 12 months, every NFT project is going to realize, hey, we can't just rely on NFT sales that are going to be recurring revenue for the rest of time. That's not what this is. So you're going to see NFT projects have to experiment with leveraging their IP and community, but monetizing in new ways. And if they're able to discover that through rapid experimentation, those are the ones that are going to succeed. So the best communities are going to be the ones that align on that idea and that spirit that we're going to succeed, we're going to fail, we're going to learn, and we're going to move fast, and we're going to try new things to figure out what works in this new world. And I think that we've done a really good job of kind of setting up that precedent. And yeah, that's kind of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a challenge in anything in like Web3, and especially when you get into like DAOs, is like encouraging participation. And if you look at like the total number of token holders that we have, and then we have like a handful, several dozen people that are very, very, very active, and they want to build, they want to be part of that. There's also people, everyone collects for different reasons. So some of them bought it because they want to flip it, or like whatever. They might like the art, and they're like, I'm just getting that because I like how it looks. And like, I mean, I'm obviously very involved in the Knights of Degen, but I'm also collectors of hundreds of other projects that I don't go to their Discord, and I'm not like in their Slack like little community or anything. Like I have no idea what they're doing. And so to me, that's like the challenge is like, how do we make sure that we tell the people that would be really, really excited to participate in FCF or in whatever, and like giving them the tools to say, hey, you can come and do this as much or as little as you want, but we are building the tools if you want to do it.
This is a noisy space. it's a noisy room, but it's also a noisy space. So
the literal and figurative.
Yeah, we have to figure out how to navigate the noise in the market to make sure that people can look beyond, look under the hood and see our level of execution. I wouldn't say that are the most viral project or have the most valuable NFTs or the most valuable token, but I'll put our project up against any in the entire space in our ability to execute and our ability to provide utility to our community. And if you look under the hood, that's what you'll see.
Yeah, so that brings up an interesting point. I mean, so much value conversation in the NFT space is directly equated to price, right? And that's only sustainable so long unless there's something of substance there. How do you guys think about, like, not even just with Knights of Degen, but value long-term in the NFT space? And I guess bring it to Knights of Degen.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the value of whether it's Knights of Degen related or Web3 related is like the people that I meet and the human relationships that come out of this. And so when new tech like blockchain comes out, and now I'm talking to strangers that I'd never met before about a new thing that neither of us know a lot about, I just think it ends up with like cool new relationships that never would have happened if the underlying tech wasn't there.
Yeah, I think your question was about the long-term value?
Like value, the easiest metric to look at when it comes to value is price that you can transact for it right now, right? Like how do you think about value more than that, because that type of value is not sustainable without something more.
Yeah, so I look at value, the way I think about it is I make this comparison. You think about public stocks, like Tesla, for example. Tesla has revenue and assets under management, profit, loss, and a certain value based on that. But it's the investor demand that creates a substantial premium, which makes their market cap. People believe in the future potential of that project, invest and try to acquire stock, which removes supply and increases demand. Now, in Web3 and in this token economy, we have the same type of thing. Assets, things that we've built, things that are revenue generation, profit, loss, etc. We have demand from investors and traders, reducing supply of the token, but there's one extra thing that can create value far greater than what traditional stock can do, and that's utility. So I think that the companies and projects that figure out how to design the right utility for their token and the right demand for their token are going to see their value skyrocket in this space, because we haven't seen any of that yet. So everything that we've seen to date, in my opinion, is just scratching the surface of creating value out of these Web3 projects. Utility on top of investment demand and on top of assets, that's how I look at value.
What do you guys think needs to happen, like again, macro conversation, happen most to like push NFTs forward, push Web3 forward? What are we missing right now?
I mean, I still think that there's just too much friction to get someone new that doesn't, I mean, most people that are on the internet have heard about NFTs now, but still, if you look at like the number of people that exist that are on the internet and then the number of wallets, there's like a big gap there. And I think that it's just like, there's a hurdle. And companies like Coinbase have made it easier to like just buy a cryptocurrency and now like with the NFT marketplace. But I still think like we have so far to go before there's like mass adoption, which is inevitable, but it's still like, everyone wants it to happen in 3 months. It's probably going to take 36.
Okay, so I'll bring up something that will also lend itself to the announcement I want to make at the end. But I think there's one thing that is like dangerous for this ecosystem, and I think it's the word rug. I think that rugs need to be defined clearly. Personally, the way I define a rug right now in my eyes is a project with bad intentions that executes that very well, okay? But it's very different than an NFT project that fails with good intentions and executes that very badly. So if you think about it, a rug in my eyes is someone that goes out with the intention to just take money and then shut their project down, or with no real intentions to ever provide value to their ecosystem. But that's not the same as projects that are not built to understand how to execute, that this is not a project, it's a business. And you have to have the ability to support this project way beyond just as a successful drop. And it takes that level of understanding. And projects are going to fail. And we're going to see a lot of them fail this year when they realize they can't generate that same level of revenue that they generated day one on that first drop. So we have to be prepared for the difference between a rug and a startup failure. And a startup failure shouldn't be vilified. If we vilify every project that fails, people will be afraid to experiment. They will be afraid to create. We vilify the people with bad intentions that are affecting this market and making it a scary place, but we can't vilify failed projects. Not everybody is going to win. Not every project is going to find project market fit, and that's okay. We just need, and that's I think a big challenge right now, and it lends itself to something that we're going to try to do.
Yeah, and the reality is being able to sell out a mint on hype is a totally different skill set than being able to build a sustainable business of value.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you that like the way that rug gets tossed around is probably a little far like fast and loose. But I do think that a legitimate problem in the space is scams, like the actual rug scams, right? Because I feel like all the time I'm seeing, oh, this project turned out to be a scam, and they're being hyped, right, by influencers that have actual sway, and it's not the influencer's fault necessarily, but they should do their research. But I do think that is a hurdle that we have to deal with, and the blockchain where everyone can just be anonymous and you don't have to have any real accountability is dangerous and it's like scary to new people.
Yeah, and the challenge is like it's very, very hard to distinguish between the two, right? To distinguish between the two, you have to look under the hood of both the project and someone's mind, which by nature of like under the hood is either really hard or impossible. So like that's why, because it's hard to see.
So with that said, and I think it's actually a good kind of like transition.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about early on, like so much of the structure that we're looking to build and that we're leaning into, right? And how we can help support things in the best way possible.
So something that we're working on right now. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Players Only. Anyone familiar with that project? Michael Carter Williams and a bunch of different athletes are working on that project. Well, there was a big kind of to-do yesterday on social about how that project was a rug. They weren't able to deliver on the expectations they set in the market.
And they did not execute on the stuff.
Frankly, they weren't able to reach the potential they set out to do or reach the value they decided to offer. So I've been in talks with Michael Carter Williams, who's the founder of that project, NBA basketball player currently on the Orlando Magic. And we are in talks right now to acquire Players Only, bring Michael Carter Williams in-house on our team to help us with athlete outreach, athlete development, give their community a new home since the success of that project didn't meet their expectations. And our goal is to leverage the foundation of the community, those sports fans that wanted to engage with athletes and players and interact and provide a better infrastructure for their project. So I'm really excited. This is not final yet, but we are in late stage talks right now to bring that project in-house, give that community a home, and then help support that community to reach the objectives they set out when they supported the project and help the creators like Michael Carter Williams continue to grow and learn. Because I know Michael, he reached out to me quite a few times during the beginning of his development of that project for advice. He's a student of this ecosystem, and he wasn't taught how to build a startup or about Web3. He got his hands dirty, and the vilifying people like him as a rug, it's tough because you want people like that to have the courage to try. Now, he'll acknowledge firsthand he failed to deliver, but we hope that we can be a platform for those types of athletes and entertainers to be able to learn, develop, grow, and provide value to their communities within our greater ecosystem. So I'm really excited that we're able to hopefully bring that deal home.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we talked about from the get of this conversation, right? And we've been doing it. We're trying to better support sports-related initiatives, right, for Web3. And that's what we're doing. Any closing thoughts from you guys?
Stay awesome.
Go
Thank
check out Knights of Degen, guys. We would love to have you part of our community. You can find me at Drew Austin on Twitter.
At Blake Jamieson on Twitter.
At It's Mike O'Day.
Thank you, everybody.